There's been a lot of talk about the Electoral College lately, and I was wondering, are we disassembling the Republic with our good intentions? We'll find out next on the Constitution Study.
There's one thing you have to know wherever you make your stand. Came from a long through line of everyday Americans.
Well, hello there, everyday Americans. Paul Engel here once again with the Constitution Study live and in person. I am glad you could join me if you're watching this recording. I hope you can join us live the next time. As always, head over there, constitutionstudy.com, for more information about what we're doing here and to ask questions or suggest other topics we may cover. I want to thank those who support the work that we're doing, whether it's bringing me out to speak to different groups or like Mark and Carol Murphy and the band Rebel North. Their CD is dropping soon, Everyday Americans, which is where I get my bump music. Thank you. It is Everyday Americans that really are the backbone of this country, and it's really the people I think should be engaged in this discussion about the Constitution, that we need to know what it says. And we'll talk more about that. Also, want to remind everybody in June 8th, I'm going to be in North Georgia, Clarksville, Georgia, at homeschool conference there. If you're in the area, I'd love it if you could stop by and say hello. I got a note that somebody stopped by the booth to say hello when I was in Nashville, and I was talking to somebody and they didn't stop back. I was really kind of disappointed. I look forward to meeting people in person and talking with them. So let's talk about this, and even the title I gave this particular article and broadcast about disassembling the Republic with good intentions has sparked quite a bit of debate. We've had quite a debate on Facebook already when I shared the topic. It all comes around this idea of the Electoral College, and what I think is a misunderstanding of how we elect a president, what the role of the president is, why we elect the president the way we do, and it leads to a lot of good intentions. I honestly believe that I'm sure there's some people that have maybe some nefarious intentions, but the vast majority of people I talk to, I believe they have good intentions, but I think they don't quite understand what is going on. So I want to take some time today, and I want to explain why I think this move towards a national popular vote will actually help disassemble the Republic. It'll take us even further down a road to tyranny. You may have heard a quote by G.K. Chesterton paraphrased as, "Before you take down a fence, find out why it was there in the first place." Well, as you know, I like to go back to original sources, and I found the original quote, which I really like. I really think it's kind of cool. The more modern type of reformer goes gaily up to it and says, "I don't see the use of it. Let us clear it away." To which the more intelligent type of reformer will do well to answer, "If you don't see the use of it, I certainly won't let you clear it away. Go away and think. Then, when you can come back and tell me that you do see the use of it, I may allow you to destroy it." And to me, it's evocative language. It makes me think. And if I think about the history, I remember many years ago, there was talk, we don't see a use for an electoral college anymore, so let's get rid of it. And we didn't. And I don't know if that was a conscious decision to say, if you don't know why, don't get rid of it, or if it was just the inertia of a nation this size. But now we see people who say, I see the reason for it, now let's get rid of it. But when I look at their reasons, they don't hold up to history. They don't hold up to the facts of the original documents and why we have an electoral college, what the purpose of it is. So let's take a look. We're going to take a look at a couple of things here. And first, let's go to the source. All right. Article 2, Section 1 says, "Each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct a number of electors equal to the whole number of senators and representatives to which the state may be entitled in Congress." Now, if you think about this for just a minute, it's the states appointing the electors. See, it's states that vote for president, and the states get a number of votes based on their representation in Congress, both the House and the Senate. We've been led to believe that it's the people that vote for president, but it's not. It's the states that vote for president. And it's this, one discussion I had earlier today was, one person, one vote. It's Iowans that vote for president. It's Floridians that vote for president. I'm like, no, it's not. It's Iowa that votes for president. It's Florida that votes for president. It's that misunderstanding that I think brings a lot of the issues. Now, the first of the topics that came up is a movement called the National Popular Vote Movement. And basically, it's the idea of let's go to a popular vote. And we'll talk about that. Let's talk about that now, I guess. See, the idea of the National Popular Vote is the National Popular Vote, and I thought I had a quote in here, but I guess I don't. The National Popular Vote is a compact. It's an agreement between the states that says once states representing 270 electors agree, meaning once they can actually elect the president, they're basically going to ignore the will of their own citizens, and they're going to elect a president based on this mythical National Popular Vote. Now, what I'll show you is that what they are doing is constitutional. I don't think it's smart. I don't think it's helpful, but it is at least constitutional. But it misses one very important part, and that is how we elect a president and why we elect him that way in the first place. See, with the fact that we don't teach civics anymore, that we don't actually read the Constitution, many Americans may be surprised to find out that they don't actually vote for president. In fact, many don't even know how we vote for president. So let me state right off the bat, based on the Constitution, the people do not vote for president. All right, let me repeat that because I know there's several people here are probably picking themselves up off the floor. The people do not vote for president. The states do. Now you say, well, what? Why? If you looked at the 2016 election, you probably didn't notice on the ballot the fact that you're voting for electors for president. It's usually hidden in really, really small print. And they make life a little difficult. So the obvious question is, well, why? Why is it the states that elect the president and not the people? Well, there's a really very good reason. And it starts with this idea of, well, what is the constitutional job of the president? Well, let's see. The first, his job is to execute the laws of the Union. He's to execute federal laws. Now, his second job is to represent the Union in foreign affairs. Militarily, he does this as commander-in-chief. He is the head of the military. Congress creates the rules for the military, but once the Congress engages the military, it's the president who is the primary organizer. He's the commander-in-chief. So our military interactions are coordinated by the president. They're represented by the president. He also represents us diplomatically by appointing ambassadors, receiving ambassadors, and signing treaties. Notice if you go through Article 2, Sections 2 and 3, all the powers of the president, none of them deal with the people of the United States. None of them deal with the input or the action of the people of the United States. Now, we've turned the executive branch into this kind of ruling party. I don't mean political party, but it's become a ruling class. We've turned it almost into a king where we ask more and more of the president. We want him to set a budget, even though it's Congress that establishes what gets taxed and what gets spent. We have created all these executive agencies that are under the president that do all of this work, but that's not his constitutional role. So since the constitutional role of the president is to represent the Union of States, well, it makes sense for the states to elect him rather than the people. which means there is no actual popular vote for president because technically you voted for an elector for president. And I know that sounds like a minuscule, like I'm nitpicking, and in a way I am, because it's important. You see, it's an important point to understand how we elect the president and the role we have for president. And I'm going to get into that as I go through some of the things we have here. Gotcha. So the other move, I just want to make sure I had my notes because I got a couple things I don't want to get ahead of myself. The other thing that is happening is there is actually a resolution in Congress, House Joint Resolution 7, proposing an amendment to abolish the Electoral College. Now, I give these people credit. They are following the Constitution. They wish to get rid of the Electoral College, and they propose an amendment to do so. The National Popular Vote movement is actually following the letter of the law, not the spirit of the law, but okay. Here we have the letter of the law. And what's interesting is they say they know why we have an electoral college, but when I look at their reasons, I find out for the most part, they're wrong. No other way to put it. See, quoting, it says, whereas the founders of the nation established the Electoral College in an era of limited nationwide communication and information sharing. Absolutely true. Whereas the development of mass media and the internet has made information about presidential candidates easily accessible to the United States citizens across the country and around the world. Also true. Whereas citizens now have a far better chance of knowing about out-of-state presidential candidates than about presidential electors from their home states. Okay, yes, I'll give them. Those are all true. Those facts are true. Communication is better today. You can, a candidate can cover more of the country. We have broadcasts, we have internet. We can know a lot more about these candidates. But if you actually go back and read the debates in the Constitutional Convention, and if you read Hamilton and Federalist 68, you'll see that knowing about the candidates was only one very small reason why we have an electoral college. You see, Hamilton said in Federalist 68, it was equally desirable that the immediate election should be made by men most capable of analyzing the qualities adapted to the station and acting under circumstances favorable to deliberation and to a judicious combination of all the reasons and inducements which were proper to govern their choice. A small number of persons selected by their fellow citizens from the general mass will be most likely to possess the information and discernment requisite to such complicated investigations. So Hamilton saying, yeah, okay, we do want to have these men acting under circumstances where they're able to make a decision. Right? They would have the information to make this decision, which, again, remember, these men did not get together in one location. They met generally in their state capital. But notice what it says. Yes, analyzing the qualities adapted to the station. In other words, do the people who are being considered for president have the qualifications? Do they have the skills necessary? But also it says acting under circumstances favorable to deliberation. Now, if you've seen any political campaign, you'll notice deliberation rarely enters into it. It's one candidate saying the other person's horrible and I'm great, and I'm going to do this good stuff for you, and the other person's going to do horrible stuff to you. And there's no deliberation. There's no real discussion. Even the debates are more beauty contests than actual debates about substantive issues. See, Hamilton said it was desirable that the immediate election, people actually voting for president, be made by people capable, a small number, to allow discussion, to allow deliberation and debate and points and counterpoints to come to this decision rather than some national popularity contest. He says, a small number of persons selected by their fellow citizens. See, the way, it's interesting. I have a presentation I go into. It goes into this a little deeper. But the way they originally were going to elect a president is the president was going to be selected by Congress. And Gouverneur Morris said, I don't think that's the best way of doing it. Then the president would be too dependent on the legislature. So how about we have electors chosen by the people of the states? Each state gets electors, and then each state, the people in each state can choose their own electors. And they proposed actually doing it district by district, meaning each House district, you would vote for an elector from your district, which would then go to a location in your state, generally the state capital, where they would discuss and debate the candidates for president and then vote. Now, that's morphed over the years. And there's a couple of issues that come from that, which actually were parts of discussions today about winner-take-all states. I think 48 of the 50 states hand over their electors, all of their electors, to whoever wins the majority of votes in their state. I don't think that's the best way to do it. But, it is, again, constitutional. The legislature decides. But notice what you don't see here. It doesn't say that, we think the people should vote for it, but we don't think they're going to have information, so we want to have people that can be better informed. No, we want people that will be able to debate, to discuss. And it really isn't that strange an idea if you think about it. We elect people. We don't discuss and debate laws among the populace. We elect people to do that for us. We elect representatives. And now we elect senators that represent the states that will do the deliberation, the investigation, the deep dives into legislation, and then vote on them for us. So it's the same basic idea. It's just being used to elect someone to the office of president. See, Hamilton goes on, the process of election affords a moral certainty that the office of president will never fall to a lot of any man who is not in an eminent degree endowed with the requisite qualifications. Talents for low intrigue and the little arts of popularity may alone suffice to elevate a man to the first honors in a single state, but it will require other talents, a different kind of merit, to establish him in the esteem and confidence of the whole Union, or of so considerable a portion of it as would be necessary to make him a successful candidate for the distinguished office of President of the United States. This is the argument that's most often made for the Electoral College, is we want a president of the Union, not of small areas. And there's a point to this. I think it's a really good point, an important point. The whole idea is, yes, if we had a national popular vote, if we had one, then logic says the candidates are going to gravitate to the areas that are most densely populated because, well, that's where they're going to get the most bang for their campaign buck. Right? Now, I've heard some interesting discussion about today they focus on battleground states. And again, that's a question of winner-take-all elections, not so much the Electoral College. But think about this for a second. If we went to a purely national popular vote for president, there are enough people in the 20 largest cities in America to elect the president, regardless of what the rest of the nation wants. Now, I don't know about you, but imagine if this was who was electing the president. See, this is a map of population density. Now, if you're a candidate with a limited amount of time and a finite amount of money, where are you going to spend your time and where are you going to spend your money? You're going to spend your time and money up here in the Northeast, where you've got very high population densities, lots of people, lots of votes, Down here in Florida, you'll probably spend some time there. Looks like, California. But once you get out of the Rust Belt and California, there aren't very many large spikes. What happens when this area truly becomes flyover country? When it just doesn't matter that much to the president anymore because they can get enough votes somewhere else. Now, you can make all the political justifications, and there's obviously parties and others that are involved in this, but from a pure understanding of the role of the president, do you really want the president elected by a handful of cities? Notice I didn't say states. A lot of people focus on a handful of states. It'd actually be a handful of cities. See, I lived in New York State for most of my life. I lived there 50 years. And even though a large geographic area of the state tended to be more middle of the road, New York City, extremely left-wing, extremely progressive. And they really ran the state. So even though areas were like, no, we want to take a slower, maybe more centrist view, didn't matter because the city where the population density was ran the state. What happens when New York City, Boston, Washington, Chicago, LA, San Francisco, Miami basically run the nation, or at least the executive branch of the nation? We've put so much power in the executive branch that becomes, well, to me, that's kind of a scary thought. It's a scary idea that we would put so much power into such a small area. Why? Well, because we're disenfranchising the rural areas. We're putting tension between the urban centers and the rural areas. See, Hamilton went on, the process of election affords a moral certainty that the office of president will never fall to the lot of any man who is not... sorry, I did that one. Let's go here. There we go. All of these advantages will happily combine in the plan devised by the convention, which is that the people of each state shall choose a number of persons as electors equal to the number of senators and representatives of such state in the national government, who shall assemble within the state and vote for some fit person as president. See, if you look at the debates, the original plan was each congressional district would choose its own elector. That elector would meet, all the electors for a state would meet, and then they would decide in debate. This winner take all, that's a state decision. That is not a constitutional issue. Let's see, where are those? And it's, again, I guess I keep want to get to this point because to me it's important. They wanted the president to have a majority of the states behind him, not a majority of the people. Notice, if we look at this quote, to make sure that the successful candidate had a considerable portion of the states would be supportive of him. And that has to do with, the interesting demographics of urbanization. As we've become more urban, it's become more of an issue. But when asked why we don't vote individually for president, it's because the president works for the states. He or she is a representative of the states. He or she is I don't know another way. I can't think of another way to put it. If their job is to represent the states, not the people, then the president should be chosen by the states and not by the people. So back to our HJ7. Whereas the Electoral College is premised on an antiquated theory that citizens will have a better chance of knowing about electors from their home states than about presidential candidates from out of state. Again, you can go to the website and see more. I've done a couple of articles on this, but that is not the reason we have an Electoral College. We don't have an Electoral College because the people couldn't know about out-of-state presidents. I mean, think about this for a second. You have 13 colonies. You have from Massachusetts almost to Maine, all the way down to Florida, traveled by horseback. Now, if the concern was knowing the candidates, why do the electors meet within their states rather than meeting in the federal capital? See, if the concern was, well, we want to pick electors because they're going to know better about the candidates, we'll know better about the electors and the candidates. How are the electors going to know about the candidates unless they go to one central place? But they don't. They gather in their states because it's the states that are electing the president, not the people. And again, I keep harping on this because it's what we're being told over and over and over again. One person, one vote, yes, but it's one person, one vote for an elector, not for president. In fact, I could not find anywhere in the debates or in the Federalist Papers that there was ever a plan, ever, for the people to choose a president. It was always either the states or some representation of the states that would choose the president. Whereas since the nation's founding, U.S. citizens have amended the Constitution to expand the opportunity for citizens to directly elect their elected leaders, whereas the 17th Amendment established both a precedent and a preference for the direct election of citizens' elected representatives based on HA Resolution 7. All right. Since the nation's founding, once, and only once, have we changed the way we've elected a position. Well, all right. In the way that this person is talking about. Yes, we went from choosing, from a pool, whoever got the most votes was president, second most was vice president. Now we have separate elections for president and vice president. But what he's talking about is the idea of moving the decision for elections from the legislature to the people. That was the 17th Amendment. Did it establish a precedent? Yes. Does it show a preference? I don't think so. I think most people are ignorant and apathetic about the 17th Amendment. They don't know. They don't care. They simply say, you mean we haven't always voted for the senators? No. But here's what I will tell you. It has helped to destroy the republic. It has weakened the power of the states to act as a check against federal government overreach because the states no longer have a say in federal legislation. See, originally senators who are meant to represent the states. Members of the House represent the people. Members of the Senate represent the states. Their job is to look out for state interest, to protect state sovereignty in the federal government. And then we turn that over to the people. And now there's nobody representing state interests. Look at the Senate. Do they actually really try to protect the interests of their own state, or only of the people that that they think will get them the most votes, or the special interest groups? See, rather than a preference, I think it's been a detriment to our nation, and I think this idea of a national popular vote will make things even worse. You see, the problem we have with both the national popular vote and this move to abolish Electoral College is it moves us from a republic back towards a democracy. Actually, hang on for a second. Before I get into that, I hear a lot of people refer to us as a democracy. We aren't. We are a union of 50 sovereign states. We are a republic where both the people and the states choose people to represent them to pass laws, but the people and the states retain their power, their sovereignty. What we have here is a move towards a democracy. We saw it with the 17th Amendment. We're seeing it again now with the attempt to get around or to get rid of the Electoral College. Now, we've been taught that democracies are good things, but our founding fathers were terrified of democracies. John Adams said, remember, democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself. There never was a democracy yet that did not commit suicide. It is in vain to say that democracy is less vain, less proud, less selfish, less ambitious, or less avarice than aristocracy or monarchy. It is not true, in fact, and nowhere appears in history. Democracies are turbulent. Alexander Hamilton said, "It has been observed that a pure democracy, if it were practical, would be the most perfect government. Experience has proved that no position is more false than this. The ancient democracies in which the people themselves deliberated never possessed one good feature of government. Their very character was tyranny, their figure deformity." You want to see democracy in action? Look at what's going on in some of these college campuses where groups who can make enough noise and get enough attention can trample the rights of other people. Where, you see, you see turmoil because you get your way by making a fuss. You get your way by rioting and demonstrating and making a nuisance of yourself and intimidating other people to your point of view. I think James Madison, though, put it best. Democracies have ever been spectacles of turbulence and contention, have ever been found incompatible with personal security or the rights of property, and have in general been as short in their lives as they have been violent in their deaths. Think about this for a second. In the late 18th century, there were two great revolutions, the American Revolution and the French Revolution. Now, there are two major things that distinguish these two revolutions. The American Revolution established a republic, and it did so with a Judeo-Christian ethic. The French Revolution established a democracy with a secular ethic. Now, look at what happened over the years. We are now, 232 years under the same Constitution since 1787? The oldest nation or union under the same Constitution in history. No nation has gone so long under the same document with the same government. What happened in France? You know what happened in France? The Reign of Terror. You had the democracy where the people rose up and said, "Off with their heads," and they did it. And property was confiscated. Lives were taken. You think your rights were safe in pre-Napoleonic France? Why do you think they ended up with Napoleon Bonaparte? Because it was tumultuous, it was turmoil, it was hectic, it was dangerous. See, democracy is best described as two wolves and a sheep voting over who to have for dinner. Your rights aren't protected in a democracy. Don't believe me? Check the news. What are they trying to do? I'm drawing a blank on the name. There was a congressman that said, religious liberty is just, your religious rights will not be used to protect you from trampling on LGBT rights. Now, I admit, I may disagree with certain lifestyles, but as long as they don't impact me, I may say they're wrong, but I can't say that I can stop them. Right? That's my point of view. That to me is a republic. That to me is tolerance. I disagree with you. I will tell you I disagree with you, but I will tolerate you living that way. But what do we see in Congress? No. Your religious objections, look at the Equality Act. We're going to have an article on that coming up now. Your religious objections will no longer be tolerated. Now, we know we have a First Amendment right to freely exercise our religion, but that doesn't matter anymore because we are turning ourselves into a democracy, and any group that can get enough attention, that can cause enough of a stink, cause enough turmoil, gets what they want. Is that really what you want? Stop and think about this for a minute. Removing the Electoral College, centralizing the presidential vote in the big cities. Sure, it puts tension not only between urban and rural areas, but between the few states that have very large cities and more rural states. You're creating a divide between the states, and you're centralizing more power in Washington. Why? Because you're removing the states from the selection process of the president. Now, we've seen what happens when people's rights are trampled upon and when states are polarized without an effective means of reconciliation. See, it happened twice in this nation's history. It happened in the 1770s and then again in the 1860s. In the 1770s, the trampling of our rights led to a civil war. We call it the Revolutionary War because we won, but it was a civil war. And then in 1863, we fought another civil war over a disagreement between the states on slavery and state sovereignty and how we were going to deal with these issues. And we ended up with polarized states, where states separated into groups and they didn't talk, they stopped talking to each other, they stopped working together, and we ended up with a war. Is that what you want? Because this push for a national popular vote or to abolish the Electoral College really is, it's going to lead to, it's going to be more polarization. It's going to be more animosity. It's going to lead to greater struggle between the states, and it's going to push us closer to another civil war. Remember, democracies never last long. What happens when we become a democracy? Will we get more and more like a democracy? Pure democracy looks to be the most perfect. It sounds great. Everyone knows, like I said, one person, one vote. They all sound wonderful, except if you look at history, they don't work that way. So that brings us all the way back to Chesterton. And the question, okay, you told us you didn't see a reason for the Electoral College, but you wanted to get rid of it. And the nation effectively said no. Go figure out why it's there. And they have. They say, okay, we know why it's here. But the reasons they give are wrong. I've shown it. I've gone back to our founders. And again, I've got more documentation up on the website. And I'll put links in the in the show notes. You see, whether they realize it or not, these men and women who are pushing to get rid of or to bypass the Electoral College are really effectively trying to disassemble the Republic. They're trying to do it right before our eyes. They wanted to turn into a democracy because they think they're going to get their way. At least that's my opinion. I don't know. I really shouldn't consider what's in other people's heads. But I have a question. See, just as Chesterton said, I won't let you get rid of it until you can give me the reason why it's here in the first place. We need to say the same thing, but it's got to be the right reason. Yes, I think the states need to make changes in how they assign their electors. That is a state issue. And by all means, I like the district method. I like the idea of each congressional district getting an elector selected by the people. That elector, I'm torn. I don't know that I really want that elector pledged to a specific candidate. I think we'd have a much healthier republic if those electors got to choose for themselves. But I could even handle them being pledged to an elector if instead of a winner take all, they got pledged to vote for who they wanted to vote for, or who they were pledged to vote for. In other words, in a lot of these battleground states where it's, 55-45 one way or the other, I'd like the electors assigned that way. And if you think about it, if each elector gets chosen by the local people, even if that elector is pledged, then each district gets a say in who will be elected president. And then the state as a whole can assign its two electors based on the popular vote in the state as a whole. But we need to be kind to these people that are pushing for an abolishing of the Electoral College, because I do not think most of them have bad intentions. I think what they have is bad information. I think they have not been taught how we elect our president. They haven't been taught why we elect the president the way we do. And they're making a bad decision based on bad information. And I think it's up to us, as we've read, as we've studied, to teach not only the following generations, but our fellow citizens. Wait a second, this is the reason why we have an electoral college. This is the reason it is set up the way it is. And rather than throwing the whole thing out because a few people didn't get the person they wanted president, maybe we should figure out what we're doing wrong with the system that was given us and go back to the original concept. That was the original concept. The reason, as James Madison said in a letter to Mr. Hay in 1823, the reason they gave the choice of electors to the legislature was basically political shenanigans. They couldn't come up with a compromise between the states as to how the people should choose the electors. So they said, fine, since it's the states that's choosing, we'll let the state legislatures figure it out. And what I'm seeing, at least from my limited experience, is what we have are the political parties in control. The political parties control the nomination process. They control the primary process. They have set up a system. They control the selecting of elector process. So it's all based around their parties. I think that's the problem. I think we have to ask ourselves, are we willing to fight to save our republic? Are we going to take the information that we gather about why we are the way we are and implement it the way our founding fathers wanted us to do it? Are we going to fight to maintain a republic, or are we going to sit idly by and watch us be destroyed, watch us be turned into a democracy more and more, turned over to the tyranny of whichever group is in favor at the moment, regardless of the percentage they are of the nation? Just take a look at the number of people that are identified as homosexual or transgendered, yet look at how much influence they have on the political debate. No, we have to decide. Are we going to stand by while our republic is handed over to a tyranny? In effect, to the tortured hands of an aristocracy, a group of people who will effectively rule over us, chosen by the few population centers. It kind of reminds me of the organization of the book, The Hunger Games, where one district was where all the political decisions were made. What happens when our president is chosen by the population centers and the rest of the nation just doesn't seem to matter that much anymore? So with that, let's take a look here. I hope you found that interesting. I hope I made my point. It is a somewhat turbulent idea. It is generating a lot of emotion. And I don't want to add to the emotion, but I want to be honest about the debate and about what's going on. I forgot to mention at the beginning, if you have any questions, put them in the comments. We're looking at the comments now. I'll be more than happy to try and answer any questions I can. What have we got here? Hang on a second. Where are the rest of my comments? I love it. It says I have 11 comments. Where are they? Sometimes I had this set up so it was showing me all the comments, and then it went and... No, that's not what I want. They went and rearranged things on me, and now it's not showing me all my comments. I am sorry if I'm missing your question, because it's not showing me the first group of comments. and I don't know why. I guess I got to learn a little bit more about Facebook. Let's see. I agree it's foolish to abolish Electoral College. We need it to protect our democracy. Oh, please. Our federal public with the power coming from the people. I think the electors should be represent the specific regions, and if they are elected to vote a certain way, they should be bound. Sam, I think I think I understand what you're talking about. I think I agree in principle with what you're talking about. The idea that I would like to see each state choose to select their electors via district vote. I would much rather have them chosen by the districts than this winner-take-all. I think the winner-take-all, it really kind of distorts some of the process. Like I said, you can you take a large state like California or New York or Florida, where I think was it in Florida, George Bush won by 500 votes, but he won all the electors. To me, that doesn't seem like the best process. But it is truly up to the states to do it. And I think that's where our education from the states makes educating our state representatives is important. And I apologize for not understanding why Facebook won't show me all of the comments. I don't have any chats up. No. Oh, sorry. I'm not seeing any other questions. I'm just curious as to... Now what'd you do? Well, what did you do? Oh. Get this back on the screen. Here we go. Facebook is giving me a bit of a hard time for some reason. All right, let's see here. It's winner take all. We have all the same issues with abolishing the Electoral College. Not quite the same issues, but yes, we do have a problem because, as I said, it's not. We're keeping power in the states, but we're still at that point. I don't think the states are really representing their people as well as they could. Question: does the federal Constitution obstruct the independence of each state? The federal Constitution doesn't obstruct it. The problem is we don't follow it. And I think the one situation where the federal Constitution does actually obstruct the independence of the states, it's not really so much the independence of the states. See, when we adopted the 17th Amendment, we moved from selecting senators from the state legislatures to popular vote within the state. And I did a little research of this for the book, and it was really kind of interesting. To me, it seemed more like people were complaining. It was a problem looking for a solution, I guess is the best way to describe it. People were complaining, there were states that didn't have representation in the Senate because the legislature couldn't make up their mind. They were battling over the senators. And I found that it happened, a few times. There were maybe, at any one time, maybe one or two Senate seats that were vacant because for any length of time, because the states couldn't work out within their legislature. And really, to me, that's a self-correcting problem. If the legislature can't choose a senator, then the legislature doesn't get that representation. Kind of self-correcting, isn't it? And if the people of the state think that those senators aren't doing their job, isn't it kind of up to the people of that state to fix it? I don't know. But in general, it's not. See, the problem here is not with the federal Constitution. It's, in my opinion, it's with people's understanding of the role of the president and why we elect him the way we do, and the influence that parties have taken over in the states that are causing this problem. Why do we have a federal Constitution? Well, there's a very good reason. The federal Constitution is a contract. compact's a legal term. It's a contract between the states. The federal Constitution creates the Union. It creates the federal government. See, we wouldn't have a federal government without a federal Constitution. Real quickly, when we first declared independence, the states got together under what's called the Articles of Confederation, and that didn't work so well. They tried to remain. The central government was really, 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 really weak. It had no real power. And the problem was they're trying to fight a war, and states weren't doing what they said they would do. They agreed to it in the Articles of Confederation. They agreed to it in the legislature of the time, and then they wouldn't do it, and there was no power. So when we won the war and we realized that the Articles of Confederation weren't really working, they went back to a second convention to try and hammer out the problems. They said, we really need to start from scratch. They got permission from the states, and they created a new government based on a new constitution. See, you have to remember, the states created the federal government, not the other way around. Each state has its own constitution, but the states created the federal government through the Constitution and established the boundaries, the rules, the parameters by which that federal government can operate. And the problem we have is the states have kind of fallen down the job. They are not holding the federal government to the contract that created it. So that's a whole long discussion. In fact, Adam, if you really want, head over to the website, post as an idea. Maybe I'll do a whole podcast episode. In fact, maybe I'll do a whole live stream. I've got live stream scheduled for May and June based on some classes I've been doing that I've had people ask if I could do videos of them. So I was going to bring them to you here on Facebook Live. So let's see. Anybody else? And again, if you asked your question earlier, for some reason it scrolled off the screen and Facebook will not show it to me, which really aggravates me because I thought I had it working properly, and now it's only showing me the last few. I'll have to see how I can if I can fix that. So yeah, if any other questions, throw them in there. Let me look around here. We're just about out of time. I'm at 57 and a half minutes. So I'm close. Let's wrap up with this then. I know the Electoral College thing is an emotional reaction. I understand that. And I understand that there are people that are really invested. They're really invested in their attachment to a popular vote. And that's why I think it's incumbent on us to understand not only how we vote, but why we vote, so that we can explain it to others and help see the logic of the Electoral College. The fact that the president cannot be chosen by a few cities. The president needs to work to get a fair amount of support around the nation. The president is a representative of the states, so he, or eventually she, really should be representing as many of the states as possible. And by polarizing us further through a national popular vote, by putting more and more power into smaller areas, we don't make a president that is supported by a large group, a large number of states. We actually increase the division in our country. We increase the polarization. You're going to end up with more people shouting at each other, because the people in Iowa and Oklahoma and South Dakota and New Mexico and Arizona that will have little, if any, say in the president will be mad. I mean, look at it this way. Imagine California voted 90% for the Democratic candidate for president, but the Republican got 51% of this mythical national popular vote. Do you really think the people in California are going to be happy when their state votes for the Republican, even though they voted for the Democrat? But that's the direction we're heading. And that's the part that I'm concerned, because again, I don't see good coming from it. I see bad coming from it. And I know they have good intentions. That's why I called it Disassembling the Republic with Good Intentions. I know most of them have good intentions. I just really think it's a bad idea. And even though they may be following the Constitution, doesn't mean that it's the right thing. So I hope you found this interesting. I hope you got some information to share with others. I'm going to update this video. I'm going to put some notes in it with links to other resources. The Federalist Paper 68 that I referred to, some other things, so that you have the tools to have a discussion with friends, family, coworkers, whoever you encounter, because that's really what I'm trying to do. Is we want to educate ourselves. Head over to the website, constitutionstudy.com, for more resources. Ask questions. I love questions. I've had a great time here tonight. I hope you have too, and I hope to see you again the next time on the Constitution Study. Good night, everyone.
There's one thing you have to know wherever you make your stand. Came from a long through line of everyday